Namaste. Welcome, beautiful souls. Welcome to my Friday Tarot Chat. My name is Sadhana, and it's my pleasure to have you here today. I'm not sure that I've ever done this live before, maybe once. I'm going to share with you some thoughts on edging and trimming decks, and I have been doing this for I don't know, some time. What year is it now? 2023. I'd say between 5 and 7 years. I've probably been trimming and edging decks, and I am not super crafty, but I love doing this kind of thing, and I find that so much noise in the background. I find that it's very relaxing. And I love to do things with my hands when if I'm watching a series on Netflix or something. Okay. The noise in the background should disappear. I shared with you some time back, I live close to a YMCA camp. And when they are shifting groups, the group walks from the camp to the ferry. And it sounds like a bit of a parade. It's very noisy, full of excitement. Yeah. I am cutting in and out. Okay, well, let's change that. This is also... Let me change the microphone. I have a new microphone. So I'm going to do that. Just give me 1 second here. All right. Oopsie. Let's make this really unprofessional today. And see if the mic is on. I think the mic is on. Okay. I haven't tested this mic yet on a live stream. So I'll use this today and we'll see how it goes. All right. And I am going to make one other adjustment. And okay. Okay, volume is a bit low. All right, let's change that. Let me know if that's any better. And much better. Okay. All right, so let me know if there's reverb with this, because now I have turned it all the way up. So let me know how that goes. Welcome. Thank you, Laura and Donna, for helping me with that. No, not better there. Okay. The volume is still really low. This is good. I need to know this. I need to know this. Okay, so I'm just going to keep yammering on just for a little bit. I'm going to tell you about what I am doing today. Okay. Okay, so you know what would be really good is if I perhaps... So Donna, you turned yours way up. This is very frustrating. Okay, I can see on my computer that the sound is very low, and I'm speaking in my normal voice. Okay, so let me go back to the other mic and just talk. Okay, so I'm not using this mic now. I'm going to switch to the other mic that was cutting in and out. Okay, so now I am just using the computer mic. So tell me what the difference is now and how that sounds for you. And I appreciate your support in this. Today I will be cutting and trimming. It'd be nice to have some decent sound here. So tell me which mic you like better. Do you like it now, or do you like it when I was using this one? So I am, just let me start here with my intention. So this is Tarot of the Strange Branches. And this deck came with white sides. So it's printed on white cardstock. And it is, it's a large deck, so it means it's going to take a lot of ink to do the edges. And also it's fairly cardboardy, which means it's going to be soaking up a lot of ink. And in the process of edging this deck, I don't believe that I had used any of the ink in the ink pad that I was using. I used one of the little dewdrop inks, and I used the color Desert Sand. And I threw it away because it totally destroyed the pad and there was no ink left. So I was able to completely edge the deck with one of these little ones. And I have purchased a larger one to do a second coat. But what I thought today, I'm still looking for feedback here. You sound there is a hissing. Okay, well, we have sound issues today. The fan on my computer is fairly quiet. All right. Okay, you know what? I'm going to put the new mic to the side, and I'm just going to go ahead with today's video. Okay. So let's add the other camera. And so as I was saying, I edged this deck and I used an entire one of these little dewdrop ink pads, and I used Desert Sand, and I have purchased, I just realized on settings I need to do one more thing. I probably need to turn this down now because that'll be too loud. Okay, so now I'm on a usual setting and I'm not going to play with the mic anymore. I know it's not great when it's all the way up on my computer mic. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your support. So what I would like to do with this particular deck is I'd like to create more of the brown around the edge that we see on the guidebook and also on the back of the cards. So there's more of a, so we have that watercolor look on the back of the deck. And so what I'm going to do, I'm not going to buy any, I didn't purchase any new colors for this. I have the Memento Rich Cocoa, which is the same as this little one. I can test this one. And I also have one of the James Holtz colors, and this one is Walnut Stain. And so probably I will, well, let's just test the colors here. So if this one is really, it's really dark. And let's contrast that with the Rich Cocoa, which is even darker. And honestly, I love working with these particular ink pads. So I think I'm going to go ahead and just use the Rich Cocoa because I know I have more if I need it, because I also have that large ink pad. Okay, so my process for this, I tend to use paper towel just because, and I reuse it. You can see I've used these to cover many different, for lots of different decks. And usually I'm working at a much larger table. And what I'm going to do with these cards is I'm just going to, let's zoom in a little bit here. Oh, it's such a, okay. So I'm just going to do the corners of the card, because I've already edged the whole card, and I probably will go back and go over the whole thing with the desert sand again once I get the new ink pad. And then I put the cards on a piece of paper towel. And usually what I do is I'll do about 10 cards, and then I will wipe the cards. So I'm gonna do this. And you know what, if I miss a corner because I'm talking and doing this at the same time, then so be it. That'll just add that much more character to the deck. Yeah. I have edged a few large oracles before, and it really does take a lot of ink. Yeah. So I think I'll do like 6, and then I'll show you my process for wiping the cards, which is just really a matter of wiping the cards. And it really doesn't matter, because if there is any sort of bleeding on the back of the card, I think it will be fine. Yeah. And then of course I will show you the full effect once this project is done. I've tried quite a few different inks, and these Tsuki Neko inks really are my favorite. They really are. And yeah, it does get all over your hands, and it's hard to wash off, but that's okay. And I usually, when I'm working, I keep the pads upside down. I don't know, I guess that's just thinking that the ink will be running down. I've never used the chisel point Sharpies, and I feel like there's more ink in these spongy pads. So then I just take a little piece of paper towel, and depending on the amount of ink that I see on here, which isn't much, I wipe the card, and then I put the cards to the side. And I'll show you these few cards that I've done, just so we can see if there is, if I can see the effect with this few cards. Yeah. I like the feeling of these ink pads in my hand. And you can see that there is a little bit of ink that's coming off. And I'm not concerned with the backs at all. There is a little bit of, and I think that's actually in the printing of the card. Yeah. I did a video a few years back, and I did a video a few years back. Oh, and I used Windex. I showed you how sometimes the ink had dried, and believe me, this ink takes forever to dry. And I'll show you what I mean. I'm gonna do something with the Shadowscapes Tarot. So this isn't very many cards, so I don't know if we'll be able to see the effect or not. Oh yeah, you can. Okay, so you can see how the corners are dark. And so what I'm going to do when I get my large, new large desert sand is I'm going to go over the whole thing again with desert sand. And then hopefully my intention is that I will have more of a look like this. Yeah. So that's what's happening with Tarot of the Strange Branches. And you can see if I put all of those together that, yeah, so it's a bit of a process. It's a bit of a process. All right. Now, I was saying that these inks, and I tend to have quite, like, I like to use a lot of ink because I like color on the cards, a lot of color. And do you remember I was using Shadowscapes Tarot last week? Was it last week? I think so. And I was looking at the deck and I was thinking, wow, it's the silver has really, really worn off. And so I decided that I was going to edge the deck again, and I went through all of my purples and my pinks, and I did a second coat, and I did a second coat with Lulu Lavender, and it really, really didn't show up, but I can still see the silver through here. And so what I did is I ordered a new Lulu Lavender. And this is another thing too, when you're shopping for these inks, don't be fooled by the color on the label, because this looks very pink, and Lulu Lavender is I can smudge it on here for you so you can see. It's a much more purpley color. So, and these ones are a little bit faster because they are larger. And Dawn Michelle, I'm sure you all know Dawn Michelle, Boho Tarot. She doesn't use these large pads on her cards because they do wreck the pads. They do cut the pads. And so, but I don't use these for anything else. So I'm hoping that this second coat will give me just exactly the color that I'm looking for on my Shadowscapes Tarot, because yeah, I love it when the edges show color. Now, as I throw the cards to the side, I'm not worried about, is it going to dry so fast that I can't wipe it if there's something I need to wipe. And yeah, so. Because like I said, these are, and especially when you're working with a deck that has this sort of a finish on it, they're super easy to wipe. And you can see that Shadowscapes Tarot I have already modded a long time ago, cut off 3 sides and then rounded the corners. And I'm going to show you that process shortly. And again, I'm not really too concerned that I do this perfectly, because this deck has already been edged in silver once, Lulu Lavender once. Mind you, I think the pad didn't have much ink in it. And now I'm doing it again, so a third coat in Lulu Lavender. And because this is a new ink pad, I want to be sure that I do wipe the cards. And you'll see when I wipe the cards that there'll be much more ink that's on the paper towel when I put it down to do that. Yeah. So yeah, let's do that's 4, 5, 6. So I would I'm going to also show you some different kinds of Tsukineko inks, because this particular one, the Memento one, doesn't bleed a lot. It doesn't bleed a lot. And I'm going to show you some other variations of these inks that are the pads are much softer and you get much more ink on the card, and you have to be much more diligent with your wiping. Okay, so not a lot coming off. And I'll show you against the six cards. I'll put them in the middle of the cards that have already had 2 coats and just see if they're standing out in color. I also, this week, I realized that I had not edged all of my cards in, so this deck I have a couple copies of and I have modded. So this is the Cheminette Tarot, and this one I did not trim and I edged in black, and I forgot to edge the 2 extra world cards, and I went back and I edged them this week, and I can't see any difference in the color of the black. This deck could actually use another coat, but yeah. You know, it depends what a perfectionist you are in that regard. While I'm showing you that deck, I just want to, so this is the copy that I trimmed, and one of the issues in trimming decks is that the border, the back border, can you see here? There's some black border that's remaining on the back. And often what happens is that the front printing of the card is not in such an alignment that trimming the cards is a perfect process. And so you really need to, you know, you can't be a perfectionist in doing this. And this one I edged in one of the blues. I don't know if I can show you better if you do that. So yeah, I find it kind of a playful process. I really enjoy doing it. Okay, so let's just gather all these together. I'm not sure if they've all been wiped, but they're not really, nothing's coming off, which is weird because it's a new ink pad. I wonder, okay. Oh, there's way more purple on here. Yay, yay, yay. Okay, so I'm gonna put these cards into the center here, and you can see you see the difference with the 3rd coat? Huge difference. So yeah, so that's awesome. So I'm going to finish that, and I can see a little bit of silver still bleeding through, and that's just kind of perfect because really happy with the silver. Yeah. Okay. So I want to just talk a little bit about, or share my experience with the various kinds of inks. And I don't have my whole pile over here, but that's okay. So when you can buy these, the ones that say Memento, and I believe they're a little bit less expensive than some of the other ones I'm going to show you. These ones, the pad is, it's kind of, it's not hard, but it's not super cushy, and so there's not a lot of bleed. Yeah. I just want to, oh, sorry, I'm tapping on the wrong thing. Christine, I wanted to highlight your comment here. I use rubbing alcohol to clean up my Sharpie mistakes. Okay. I've never tried rubbing alcohol. I did the Windex thing, and it was great. It worked out really well. And Donna says, oh dear, I'm a perfectionist. Yes, so it does affect shuffling. And I have used both a sliding trimmer and scissors. And I do not have a guillotine cutter. That is something I would love to have one day, is to have a very expensive guillotine cutter. And if you follow Dawn Michelle, Boho Tarot, actually her channel is now called Dawn Michelle Tarot. She goes through great lengths with her trimmer and to set up the guides for trimming her cards. And even she doesn't get perfect edges in all 78 cards, because I've seen her shuffling, and I'll show you the shuffling issue in a second. These particular ones that are called Brilliance, these are my absolute favorites. And so the color that I have, the silver that I have used many, many times, is actually called Platinum Planet. And it has, it's not a dark color. It's actually silver. So that's Platinum Planet. And I've edged many, many decks in that, and I have a couple of large ink pads. And these particular pads are way softer. Like they're super spongy. They're very spongy. And so when you have a new ink pad, the metallic, so Brilliance is a metallic ink, it really, there's a lot of spillage. And this Brilliance ink comes in gold, Galaxy Gold. I've edged lots of decks in Galaxy Gold and Platinum Planet. And there is another color here called Starlight Silver, which you would think is the platinum color, but it's not. Let's see if I can show you. And this one is, yeah, I've never used this one. This is Starlight Silver, and it's a very dark, sparkly silver color. That's actually, I've just tested it. I've never used that. So what I do sometimes is I will edge the extra cards, and then that'll give you an idea. And then you can, like I just showed you with the purple, is you can put the extra cards in the middle of the deck and just see what the effect is. Okay. Now, you need sharp, whether you're using scissors or a sliding trimmer or a guillotine, you need really clean blades, clean, sharp blades. And I was watching Dawn Michelle trim. It's funny, I was on her channel yesterday just thinking if there's anything different I can share with you. And she uses a sliding trimmer. And her trimmer was not clean. The track was not clean. And the deck that I was watching her trim was a kind of a lousy trim job, because the edges were kind of rough. And so she was talking about how important it was to clean your trimmer. And it's the same, it doesn't matter what you are using. If you have, if your blade is not sharp and the edge of your trimmer is not clean, you're not going to get a clean cut. And your cards will kind of have this poofy effect on the edge. It's like the edges will split open. And I have shared one deck, and I think my deck doubled in size from the poofy edges. And then you edge it, and then it gets even poofier. Yeah, I would never do that. I love doing this. It's really, really fun. It's really fun. So, I use scissors. And these are the scissors that I have had for 5 years, and I've never sharpened them, and they don't fail me. They're linked below, so you can see what they are. I noticed the link; they're not this color in the link. These are the scissors that I purchased, and it has a really nice handle, and it's very smooth. It's just got they've just got a really nice feel to them. So what's important here is that it's daytime. It's daytime, and I have really good light. I've learned not to do this at nighttime. If you do this at nighttime, you're gonna mess up your deck. Another thing, so there's a bunch of decks that well, let's see here. That's not one. Let's look at these. That one is actually okay. I was gonna say there's some decks I would never trim, and I don't know if I have an example for you on my desk. And that's when the border spills into the card image. So there may, like the cup symbol may spill over into the imagery of the card. So in that case, if I wanted to trim, I would cut all of that off, and your cards would end up being a lot smaller. And you would have like a mini square deck or something like that. Okay. Yes, I sew, and I have done a tarot bag video a long time ago. My only experience with good scissors is with snipping needlepoint or cross stitch threads. Yes, and if I ever catch, oh, thanks for that, Donna. I have trimmed that deck, actually. It's not at hand. I won't go take the time to go get it. If I ever catch my children using my sewing scissors for something other than fabric or thread, yeah, you don't want to hear that side of sadhana. It's not pretty. No. So scissors are for dedicated things, definitely. And these scissors only are for card trimming. They're my card trimming scissors, and they weren't expensive. I can repurchase them at any time. Yeah. Okay. Now, so I'm trimming the Sun and Moon Tarot, and I have done quite a few cards, and when I put this together, I think this is the best hand trimming I have ever done. Like, I can't feel any difference in the cards. It's really something. Like, this is wowza. And mind you, I was going really, really slowly. This is a labor of love. Hi, Jennifer, welcome. I could totally understand your husband using sewing scissors. Yeah, that's a big no-no. So this is looking really, really good. Now, my concern here, let me get you Sun and Moon Tarot. So Minor Arcana. This is a Thoth-based deck. And if you're not familiar with keywords, the way that I'm trimming it is cutting off the keywords. And so I had considered just trimming the sides like I have done in many, many decks. However, here, I'll do this one right now. So usually what I do is I go in at an angle. Like, I don't try to go straight. I go in at a very slight angle until I get that edge. And then I turn my scissors, and this is something I learned in sewing as well too. You look ahead. You don't look at where the scissors are cutting. Something I learned in sewing. Okay, and then I'll do the other side. So come in at a slight angle, get on, and see, I missed it. And as long as you get on it at the beginning, you should be good. Right? So I'm looking way down the scissors. I'm not looking at where the blade is. And see how slow I'm going? Okay. So now with the card like this, actually this would be kind of fun, but I've already chopped them all off. This would feel more like a Yonasa Yaus tarot, like a long skinny tarot, or like La Corta Tarot Key, that one. So that would be kind of fun to trim it that way. But I decided to cut off everything and to make this little mini deck. So yeah, so now I'm thinking, oh wow, kind of wish that I had done that. And you have to know your scissors. Like I'm kind of pulling right. And if you make a mistake and you leave a little bit of white, these scissors are pretty good. I can usually correct and trim off a little bit. But that tends to make the rough edges. That tends to make the, yeah. All right, so let's do another one, okay? And also note that this is actually a very easy deck to do because the background is light and the borders are white. If you are trimming a deck that has black borders and dark on the inside, so let's find a dark card. Let's find a dark card. I've done a bunch of them. Let's get a dark card that I haven't done. Well, we'll just get this one. But there's white borders, so it's not a problem. And also, this is an easy deck to trim because there's not two borders. A lot of tarot decks have 2 or 3 borders. Like there's a border, and then there's an inner border, and there's some sort of scrolly outer border, and you have to decide which border you are going to cut. It can be a problem. Let's see what I have to share with you. So here's my Margaret Peterson tarot, and you can see I could probably clean this up, and that likely would come off with a little bit of Windex. And I believe this deck had multiple borders. You can see there's a line there as well too. And I think I talked about trimming this deck. I trimmed this deck from the back because there was nice lines on the back to trim. It is a bit of a process. If you've never done this before, I would suggest doing it with the extra cards. So even here, I've angled my scissors. Like I'm not trying to go in straight. I'm going in at an angle so I can get a nice clean corner. And then I'm going to turn my scissors and guide along the edge. Okay? So, yeah. It's fun. It's fun. Okay. All right, so step 1 is to trim and decide, what exactly you are going to trim off. And then corner rounders. So there are a lot of corner rounders out there on the market. There's a lot of them. I have been through a few. And this one I've had for about 5 years. And it doesn't feel like it's getting close. It's getting close to its expiry. Because I primarily use, I'll show you in the other camera, it has 3 settings. So it has, and it's awesome because can you see here's the lever. So on the opposite side of the lever is the medium, which I have used the most. And that's the cutter that's getting close to needing replacing. So I will be purchasing a new one of these for sure. Okay, and then there is a large and a small, and I have so I trimmed my Thoth tarot, and these are the large corners. I use those on the Thoth tarot and a few other decks. Yeah, and then this is the copper. This is the one I showed you. This one here. I didn't show you this one. This is cosmic copper. And this color is amazing. I've used this on a lot of different decks, and I don't think you can get a large cosmic copper. Okay. All right. So with this process, you need to make sure the card is all the way in. Like, you have to press in. And because with the medium, it's so easy, you can use your whole hand on the corners. And just there, it caught. And I could have clipped, but I didn't because need to go in. So it's really smooth, and it just cuts beautiful corners. And so the process is to do the corner, round the corners, and then edge the deck. And you cannot do this at night when everybody else in the house is sleeping, because you will drive them nuts. It's very loud. And I'm kind of, yeah. It's a very intentional process. So yeah. And if I show you the rounded ones compared to the non-rounded ones, it's just a little bit of paper coming off. Have there been any decks that I have left unrounded? I think there's one. Deck, but then in the end I went back and I used the small. And another thing with the corner rounding is, if you don't quite get the edge perfect, the corner rounder is kind of forgiving, and it will sort of make everything look well in the end, right? So you don't need to when you're trimming, and if you have not a perfect straight line, especially when you get to the point, the corner rounder will fix that. It does look really nice. Yeah. Okay. Practicing on playing cards. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Now, tarot cards come in a lot of different finishes, and they absorb ink differently, and they cut differently. So if you are, for example, trimming a Hay House deck, you're going to need a lot of blade. It's going to have a lot of wear and tear on your scissors. I have trimmed a few Hay House decks. It's hard on your hands, and these are older ones that I did, because the paper is very cardboardy, and the more cardboardy the deck, the harder it is. Like it's actually hard on your hands to cut. And I use scissors, so, and I imagine on a paper trimmer it would require a lot more, weight of your hand. So I would never trim one that was really thin either, because that would be a disaster. Okay, so poor quality deck I would never trim. And depending on the finish, right? So whether it's linen or it is glossy or matte, it's going to feel different in the trimming experience. So I would get a mass market deck, such as this one, that has one border, that has white borders, and practice on something like this if you've never done this before, because this is going to be a lot easier. And I didn't even check the backs, but the backs are all black, and there's no issue with the borders. The backs of these decks have a white border, and it looks like it's in pretty good alignment, so there's no issue with the backs of the cards. Okay, I have a very small playlist on some of the decks that I have trimmed, and one of the decks that I trimmed was Pixie's Lenormand, Pixie's Astounding Lenormand, and that was a disaster because the cards were not aligned front and back. And so I had to actually color the cards on the front so it all matched up. So that is an interesting little project if you want to see it. It's in my crafty playlist. What else can I tell you? Yeah, it is. It's just a great way to spend time with your cards. And the only problem is shuffling. So let me show you some shuffling issues after the fact. The better and cleaner the trimming job, the better the deck, of course, will shuffle. But decks never shuffle quite the same after they have been trimmed. All right, so this is my Thoth Tarot, obviously. And this is the large deck. Okay, so the larger the deck, the better it's going to shuffle after it is trimmed. So no problem here with this one. Okay, no problem at all. So this, I'm actually going to take out those purple cards before I shuffle. The ones that I've already done, I'm going to take them out. I think there is one more in there. Oops, and that needs wiping. Okay. Hopefully I've got them all. I think so. Okay, so this one, this is Llewellyn cardstock, and Llewellyn cardstock is fine because it's quite soft. So no problem here. Okay, no problem. This is the Chamonix Tarot that was not trimmed. Beautiful. Beautiful shuffle. And then this is the one that I trimmed. Now, mind you, I have shuffled this a lot, but it's much stiffer. Much stiffer. And the smaller the deck becomes, the harder it is to shuffle. And of course you can overhand shuffle. Margaret Peterson is a big deck, so, and the cards are fairly thin, so no problem at all. This one is a problem. So the Filarcos is a big deck, and I believe the borders are gold, kind of yellow borders maybe? I don't remember. And I took off all 4 borders and this deck, and I colored it in rose gold. This is a really beautiful color. And it kind of has a clunky shuffle. It just feels like it's, I don't know. And this is fairly smooth. Like, I did a pretty good job. Well, not so much. I probably did some of these cards at nighttime, which is not a good idea. Yeah. So there may be a number of reasons why you want to trim a deck. You know, if it's incredibly large, then you can make it more manageable. If you just don't like the borders, then you can cut off the borders. What would be another reason to trim a deck? Well, just to change the shape. If you have a round deck, there's no reason you can't make it rectangular or square. That's certainly possible. So you can change the shape. So there might be a number of reasons why you want to take off borders or change the shape of the deck. And then as far as edging goes, there's a few other things that are issues. Okay, so I've seen quite a few videos where people have trimmed off the metallic edges, because metallic edges can cut your hands, and they're very rough on your hands. And so this means taking off and if the card is borderless, then the project is very difficult, for me anyway. It's better if it's not a borderless deck. And I can show you my Marielle. I decided on the Marielle to keep on the top border and the title on the bottom. So I trimmed off 2 sides. And this one was the version that had the shiny gold edges. And so I have shiny gold edges on top, on bottom, and then on the sides I colored with the Brilliance Gold, probably 2 or 3 coats. And it doesn't match perfectly, but I'm okay with that. And also this means that I'm not getting cut by those rough edges. So if I still had, there's a few of them that I don't have anymore, I would cut off the metallic borders and then re-edge them with something else. Not all metallic edging hurts your hands, but if you don't like it, then just cut it off. It doesn't have to be there. I've also seen people sandpaper off the metallic edges. Now that's a labor of love. Card by card, sandpapering every side. Yeah, and that's way too much particulate in the air. I wouldn't want to do that. Yeah. So those are a few of my thoughts on cutting, trimming, and inking. So thanks for being here. It's been a wild week and a half doing an abundance of readings, so I just wanted to do something light today, and hopefully I will see more of you next week. I will be back regular schedule next week, and I look forward to seeing you then. Have an amazing weekend, and thanks for your contribution to the conversation. Namaste.